Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. We are back for another episode. Is it episode of SME Unleashed? My name is Edwin Obonyo from Strathmore Centre of Value Investing.
And Robert Yawe from Strathmore.
Today, our third Mafiga is not in today, Raymond. So we are going to just be discussing me and Robert. And today's episode is all about the KOMA program. KOMA is KOMA. And it's the Kiswahili version, or the Kiswahili translation of the English word KOMA, the actual
C-O-M-A.
M-A.
Yes.
What we put in a sentence. And the name behind, or the idea behind the name was, we are trying to put a pause in a sentence. So in this case, we are putting a pause where?
In the business, because a business is a continuing activity. Unfortunately, the founders usually don't take any time to pause and look through what progress they've made and where they're planning to go to.
Yes, so that is the program we've been pushing around to friends, family, and all our acquaintances to come and enroll, because we think it is important to have kind of a mindset shift with regards to the entrepreneurs or the SME founders who have been working on their businesses for a very long time, but some are seeing that it's not growing perhaps at a faster rate than it should be. And one big element is the mindset, which we discussed a lot in our previous episode, so we're not going to do so much about that in this one. This one, we're just going to talk about the program in itself and the learnings we did from our pioneer cohort.
But why not? And because our findings are that the key issue here is more mindset. It's not that these people can't calculate the money, they can do their finances, they can do their HR. So the question becomes is that if you're turning over 100 million, I think you've sorted out the business side. So the question is, why aren't you growing to 500 million, to $1 billion? Instead, we are complaining that the environment and all the rest. But I think the environment that we're having a major issue with is the mindset. Either we don't have faith in ourselves that we could grow bigger businesses, or we don't feel that we want to. And I think we need to be very clear on some of this. If somebody has a business and really they do not want it to grow, then it's time we stop trying to force them to grow.
Okay, but me and you know, not everyone knows about the numbers, because in fact it is a big issue. So the reasoning behind the program, or the thought process behind the program, was to try and help the founders in major areas in their business, isn't it?
Yes.
So usually people ask me, what is this KOMA thing? And what am I supposed to gain after going through the 8 weeks? Robert, what would you say?
I would say the main aim is, okay, maybe I'll go back and say, most programs assume that the business owner does not know how to run the business. Yet they've been in business for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. So I think it's very condescending when you now tell somebody who's been running a business for 30 years that you can teach them how to run their business. So they understand the business itself. Most of them, what they don't have is the structures that would make that business they're running more efficient, more sustainable, and scalable. And I think that's what the KOMA program was, as we thought through it, was a key issue we thought was a gap. And I think that's a gap we had identified, because it makes no sense that after all these years, there are thousands of businesses, but we're not seeing more of your pet subject. We're not seeing exits into things like the stock exchange. We are not seeing mergers. We are not seeing acquisitions. Anytime we see any of this, it's a foreign company that comes in and then picks up a company. So I look at it. We normally talk a lot about Java. And you ask yourself, why did it take 2 foreigners to come and teach us how to drink the coffee we grow? Today, Java is up for sale.
Yeah.
There's no buyer. Why?
They wanted to list, according to the Business Daily reports, they were keen on listing.
Then what's happened? To me, I'm wondering why that should be an issue. It's clearly a successful business, but it seems like we are all afraid of trying to take it over. That somebody's thinking, if I take it over, it will die in my hands.
Are you sure? That can't be the issue. It can't be that people have.
That's my position. What's yours?
Or fear. Well, to be honest, I have no
opinion.
No opinion on it. Only because I have no idea what's happening. What I do know is that they wanted to list. What I'm keen to know is why they haven't listed yet, or if they're in the process where it is. Because that can be a very good company in our counter. So for that I don't know. But one thing though we also realized is that for growth, you keep saying that the model needs to be repeatable. In essence.
Yes. If it's not
and
repeatable,
part of the reasons we started KOMA was to teach that. How to make a business repeatable. Because you cannot grow if it's not repeatable. What we mean by repeatable here, we are saying is that, for example, if today you have one restaurant, let's say it's in South Sea, and you want to open the second restaurant in Kisumu, how do you open the second restaurant? That's what we mean by repeatable.
How do you open the second one without you being the one running
the second one?
The second one.
You will not be in Kisumu.
You'll not be in Kisumu. And that's what will happen. You'll open in Kisumu, then your largest expense will be airfare.
You have to be there.
Because you'll be there Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, then Nairobi, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And you're trying to run the two. And I think that's why basically our limit to number of outlets is about 5. So that you can be in each outlet one day of a week and you still have a weekend. To go to 7, to 8, to 10 becomes difficult for us because then we all believe we are the only ones who can run the business. And the program was really to tell you, you've done the hard work as a founder. You've started the business. You've gone through the hard times. You've survived 2 recessions, 3 recessions. It's 20 years down the road. So you have a business that has a customer who is paying for it. So the question now becomes, how do you replicate that without you yourself also trying to replicate yourself? And it's about putting in systems to replace people. And the first person who really needs to start replacing themselves is the founder. Because unless you start looking at your business from outside, it's very difficult for any other changes to happen. Because you'll keep second guessing your staff and the rest. And like we said when we introduced the program to the first cohort, day one was, this Thursday morning needs to become a permanent situation in your life. You'll do it for the 8 weeks, but we are hoping that you'll continue beyond the 8 weeks so that you know Thursday morning you do not go to the office. Over time, your staff then come to realize that you're not available on Thursday mornings, and slowly the leadership within the organization will start percolating up. You'll start realizing that there are people within the organization who can take charge of an issue. Now yours now becomes to put in the structures and to hand over both the tools and the responsibilities for the particular task.
Yeah, but it seems like we are repeating the same message across episodes.
And I think that's what we need to get. It's called inculcating.
Yes.
We did not say A, B, C, D in class throughout for no reason. It's because you need to internalize. You need to internalize. If you want to do meditation, you pick a phrase and you keep repeating the phrase.
I am a winner.
Whatever your phrase is, fine. But the phrase then what it does is it allows you to now go deeper into yourself. And that's why we cannot treat this as an event. Transitioning our businesses from hawking and tenders to serious growth businesses.
Okay.
Is by us internalizing what are the requirements. it's a long journey. And if we keep thinking that we can do it with 2 podcasts and then we go away and sleep, and then...
But we have a class. We have KOMA now.
Yeah.
So it's not just...
And that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So why would we do KOMA and then still do this?
Yeah. It's also something that we can also share on our digital platforms so that people understand the merits and try and still insist on what we are trying to help people with. And also the reason why we have it, people may ask, why is it not in the business school, for example? Why do we have it in the Strathmore Centre of Value Investing? Now, one of the challenges people have after growing to a certain size is investment, or rather they start seeking investment. So the Strathmore Centre of Value Investing, that's its major focus on the investing side, as the name says. But we realize we cannot talk about the investing side if we do not bring the companies up to where it can be invested, to not be able to help people put processes in for them to be invested. At some point we talked to an actual venture capitalist, and he asked us for companies.
Yes.
Give me companies that we can invest in. And when we did give, we found out that people are not running real businesses. Some never went to meet the person. When it comes to due diligence, someone looking for where the actual business is, there's no place.
So when I say most of us are hawkers, and people tell me that I'm being too negative, it's a reality on the ground.
What is hawking?
Hawking is a business of carrying goods around to sell and looking for buyers. Okay, and that's why, like you say, some of the businesses suddenly had no known address, and nowadays we've come up with co-working spaces, which means you don't need to have a lease to run a business. But more of it is everyone wants to sit at the reaping end. And that's what we have been seeing. All the entities out there are trying to get businesses to go public, to get funded, but no one wants to work on the pipeline. Others just want to do interventions based on reports that we get from our lovely IMF and other experts sitting in New York about how Kenya works. Yet they're not on the ground. So you have interventions being thrown at us. And the first heading is always SMEs have a problem of finding financing. But for some reason, they continue in business. We've come up with very creative ways to fund our businesses, but no one wants to discuss those creative ways and then help get them to be shared by others. Because even our banks are still working with the same models that they imported from 1600 Europe. No one is looking at how exactly do Kenyan businesses survive. Because they do. Every day, new businesses are set up. But what we are lacking is there's a missing middle. The businesses remain in hand and mouth, hand and mouth, foot and hand and mouth. No one transitions to the point where the business is self-sustaining. And that is what we are saying we are looking at. So it's not about the core workings of the business, it's the mindset of the founder. Do you understand that you've done the hard work of building? It's now time to put in tenants and collect rent.
Yeah, and, of course, the first part is what you take in the class. And that is what you're talking about. Asking people how much they value their time. Meaning, if they are employed for that, how much would they be earning? And it is important founders see it that way, so that there's an actual, but they'll say, but I pay myself. I guess the question would be if that payment is market rate. It's not.
Yeah, or even yourself market rate. Part of something that sunk in recently is I think what has caused us even the bigger problem today is the ease of communicating. See, before mobile phones, if you started a business, you needed to get a landline. The landline was fixed to a location, which therefore meant that almost by default,
You knew where you are
we knew where you were, and you needed to hire a secretary
to pick the phone.
to pick the phones. Because if you didn't have a secretary, then every time you walked out of the office,
Business shuts down.
business shuts down. So today, what do?
We work with our mobile phones.
Exactly. So the CEO today has become
The secretary.
the receptionist. So
You should stop being the receptionist.
it is time that as business owners, the first thing you need to let go of is that phone line. If there's a line that you've used for years,
So basically, there should be a phone for the business and a phone for
yes,
yourself.
like my friends from some area of the country say, there must be a social phone and a business phone. And they have to be on different, not dual SIM.
On different phones.
There must be a different phone so that you can leave your social phone with somebody to deal with when you're doing your business. And that is where things seem to be falling from. So the average business, which should have had 10 employees by now, is still working with 1 or 2.
Yeah, but in our survey, which we did, we found that when people go through some training intervention, the number of employees reduce.
Yes.
So the number 2 is not a problem.
1 was rationalization. Because what you realize is you've got 3 messengers and you still use a courier service.
Yes.
Yeah, when you started, maybe there was no courier service. So that's why you needed your 3 messengers. But things have changed. But because you've been so caught up in your business, you never realized that you had duplication. So that's the intervention we're saying. So when we get you out of the business and we ask you, how many staff members do you have? You say 10. List for us what each one of them does on an average day. Then you start seeing the duplications. And yes, the survey showed us that initially there was a drop in. After they rationalized, they laid off some of the redundant staff. But they then started hiring again a year or so later because now they had noted that they needed a new skill, not the duplicated skills. They needed a new skill. And so they brought in the new skill. And that's what we're talking about. If you're too busy in your business, whenever you need something, you might hire randomly and not strategically. And ours was even part of the program was to ask the founders, go out and ask yourself, what are your staff doing? And are you fully utilizing them based on their skills?
Yeah. So, and you see, we are talking about things we've learned over the way. You know, it's not everything. We are just trying to download a few things that we've learned over there. This journey has just taken us at least 2 years to be able to be fully immersed into the SME ecosystem and to really comprehend what are the challenges they are facing, what are the issues that are stopping them from growing. Basically looking at all elements. We even talked to investors on one side, people who've trained the SMEs, and now of course we that formed the background of our program called KOMA, to be able to now put all these things into a comprehensive program that allows people, you know, to kind of see it from a mindset perspective, how they can start changing things within the business. So it's been a good journey so far. We are waiting for now the next cohort. But of course, the question people will ask is, then why would you, if you're an academic institution, why partner with a bank? And we are saying we needed to partner with a bank because they have the eyes to the SMEs. Well, a good eye. They're not all eyes. A good number of eyes. I mean, or how do you put it?
I think part of it is who is really the greatest beneficiary to an efficient running SME?
Everyone.
But
founder.
more. But who has the highest risk? It's your banker.
It doesn't have to be a banker.
I see no one else with a larger risk than the bank.
Because of what? Most banks have SME banking.
Not that, because what is what? Where is the biggest revenue for the bank? It's not in transactional accounts.
It's in loans.
Yes.
Yeah, but corporate, not SMEs.
No, but what's a corporate loan? If no one is growing into a corporate, then the few corporates, all the banks are chasing after them together, then they end up having price wars. Then suddenly what should have been lucrative business is no longer lucrative. But if you grow your own corporate client from an SME all the way to a corporate level, then one, there's loyalty.
So that loyalty.
Yes. Two, it's easier for you to grow with them because you have seen their growth pattern. And you have data. And I think that's where we're having a major issue, because we've been doing interventions for 20 years, 30 years. And every time I see a slide about intervention of SMEs, it's the same slide I saw 30 years ago. The same slide I saw 30 years ago. Sadly, this morning I was in another intervention meeting, and the first slide was the usual one. Lack of financing, lack of market, regulatory issues. So 30 years and we are still discussing the same three issues. Yet billions has been poured into that. So chances are this is a problem no one really wants to fix.
So within the course, there are certain modules. So one of them is accounting and finance. Another is on legal matters. Another one is personnel matters. Another one is on exits, mergers and acquisitions. Another one is on operations. So for each module...
Forgot taxation.
And taxation, yes.
The thing everyone wants to avoid.
Everyone wants to avoid. And we've divided the session into 4 weeks of each. And usually the first 4 weeks after class, we usually give the founders a checklist. A comprehensive checklist for every module. So if you're having accounting and finance, we give you a checklist. And the checklist has things the founder needs to go back to the business to see if they have it, they tick. If they don't, they put an X. And then the second part of the module is a discussion. This is what you went in, this is what you found. So for the X's, we ask, why are they not there? Right?
Yes.
And what are we finding?
Okay, we'll first apologize to our first cohort if they're listening in. At least the good thing is we're not using names for now. But what we found out is, and I think it was something we found out from what we did with the desk research before we ran the program. When we looked at SMEs who'd gone through other programs run by Strathmore University. And what it was is that the businesses are run by technicians. So if you go to a garage, it's run by a mechanic. If you go to a hardware store, it's run by a contractor sort of person. If you go to a hospital, it's run by a doctor. If you go to a school, it's run by a former teacher. So in other words, those are what we call technicians. They're people who know how to do the work. But there's doing the work and there's running the business, which are two totally different issues and need a paradigm shift to move from one to the other. And which is why most of the checklists we gave out, because the checklist was assuming you have a business and not that you're a technician. So one of the first questions we asked was for the finance class was, do you receive a weekly cash flow statement?
Well, it had other elements.
Yes.
That was not the only one.
But that is critical, because what's your cash flow statement?
What is that? So in layman terms, we are saying money in, money out.
Yes. And what is a business's core activity? Money comes in, money goes out.
But let's go back a bit. We are also finding that most of them don't have accountants.
But if they don't have if they don't understand, they don't have an appreciation of a need for a cash flow, then why would they need an accountant?
And the accountant here, I'm not talking of full-time. Accountant here, I mean, even if it's you hire on a short-term basis, come every quarter or every half year.
Either way, and I'll go back to this. That most people out there are running accounting software, which has all the required reports you need.
You're assuming so, or you know so?
I know so.
Okay.
Now the problem is what I normally say is a difference between empowering somebody and enabling somebody. To empower you is to give you tools. To enable you is to give you the skills to utilize the tools. So what we've done is we've empowered. So we've given people accounting systems which collect data and generate reports, but we've not told them what they need to look at. So most businesses are run based on the bank statement or the bank balance.
What emphasis?
Yeah, one of the two. So they don't have a way to predict how much money they need end of next month, end of the month after, and the rest. And that's what a cash flow really helps you to do, is to show you how much money do you have, how much money are you expecting to come in, and how much do you need to pay out. It's not a complex report, but yet all the participants weren't receiving a regular cash flow statement. And the only time they did a cash flow was usually when the bank asked for it. But this is a tool for yourself. And I think it goes back to even how we live our lives. You rarely check your blood pressure. You rarely check your body temperature. You only do it when you arrive at a doctor's, which already means something will be off. And yet you're wearing one of those smartwatches on your wrist every time. Most of you have phones which can calculate the steps you take. But when was the last time you looked at it? And that carries back to how our businesses are being run.
I guess we also did the checklist for the founder to see himself or herself where they're at. We tend to underestimate that actual seeing of where you are at, because the assumption usually is because you're in the business day in, day out, you know what is happening in the business. And the checklist sometimes can be a big surprise to you, the founder, because you are seeing that there are some things that I've never even thought about or I've never even considered, or I should be getting or I should be having, but I am not. Or there are certain things I'm doing wrongly. I remember in the personnel module, they were being asked, do they know the employment law? In terms of contracts, firing and hiring. Right. And to many, they were like, we have never...
It's never crossed to their mind.
As we just hired, we just,
Because the first hire was most likely a friend. Or you called somebody and says, hey, do you have somebody who has finished school who I can hire? And you hired someone. Not because you looked at their skill set. You just, like I said before, you just need someone to sit in the office and pick the phone. Then suddenly you needed somebody to go to the bank. So the same person went to the bank. You needed somebody to make tea. Then the same person was making tea. Then one morning the person doesn't show up. And suddenly your business has shut down. And that's what happens with a lot of our businesses. Because we are dependent on people, not on systems. And you can only move to systems once you've documented the system. You then come to find out, like you were saying about how we looked at it and people had reduced the staff count. Because when you know what task needs to be done, and then you look around and you realize there are 4 people doing the same task. So it's time to send 3 home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, once they had the checklist and they filled it, we also know some struggled to do the actual filling. Because when they went back to the businesses, either the person they handed it to was not able to, in terms of not knowing everything about
the business.
And when we say the person we handed it to, we have to make a disclaimer. We had asked the students to identify a general manager, as a CEO, Chief Operating Officer, who should be able to start taking over from the founder in the administration of all departments, or essentially the whole business. So the idea was that person was the one who was supposed to take the checklist and fill it, not the founder. Unfortunately, in some cases, the founder was still the one filling it because he or she knows, he's the only one who
knows all the everything about the business. So part of the reason why many of them did not even do it was, one, they had no one within the organizations who they could trust with that level of information.
Let's stay there for a minute. Why? Why are they not trusting them? And it's not specific to our people. It's general.
It's generally, and I think it's this. Its question is,
it's a huge thing.
I know. So why do you want me to do?
Who?
The owner of the business has been running the business.
Yes.
So what they're thinking is, okay, fine, I run the business, but a third party is asking me to write down what my business does. Why do I need it?
But that's a checklist issue. I'm asking why
it's the checklist.
Not trust?
Because there's no note. They don't trust them on anything on a day-to-day basis. We don't expect them one morning to develop trust in their employees. And you accused me of always going back to the mindset thinking and being repetitive. And it has to be repetitive because unless you remind that founder on a regular basis that they need to hand over, it'll never happen. Because we had them for 8 weeks, they are back into their businesses.
So what we need to find out is if they have handed over. That's now.
And which is why the journey cannot end at the 8 weeks if we are expecting impact.
Yeah.
And for me, our failing was when we gave the checklist, we should have followed through. So in other words, we ourselves abdicated instead of
when you say follow,
delegated. Yes.
We are still.
We need to remember one thing. We are teachers. And the mindset of our students is the same. They are students. If you give homework today, students will do it. If you don't pick the homework or check the homework tomorrow, then you give homework again next week. Half will not do it. Why? Because slowly they come to realize this teacher just gives homework and never looks at it.
But we looked at it. It formed the discussions for the previous.
It formed part of the, but we did not have our own checklist to check through that. So again, why am I being transparent on this? This is a journey, and every stage we shall learn new things. We shall identify new issues, and we must be ready to change. The problem is when you take a program and it's fixed and it doesn't adapt to what you're seeing in your outcomes. So you have a static program that runs for 10 years, and then everyone is wondering why there's no output. I remember one person once asking whether I had 10 years working experience or I had 1 year working experience repeated over 9 years. That's 90% of us.
So it's different.
You're supposed to have 10 years. Each year must have had growth, change, something.
Okay.
Unless you're a plumber.
Semantics.
No, it's not. You see, what I'm looking at, I'm looking for a manager. A manager needs to be able to grow. Yes. I'm not looking at a matatu driver operates the same way every day. He wakes up in the morning, gets into the matatu, starts it up, goes down a route, does that the whole day. But you can't do that with things like a training program. You can't have it static. It has to adapt to the changing environment.
Agility. So we are saying we need to be agile and iterate.
Yes. And so basically cohort 2 will see a totally different team. And I believe, looking at what we worked with Raymond on his program, the family business.
Yes.
And if it wasn't for the change he did with one of his cohorts, whereby he required that he went to see how the businesses are doing. And then we sent in the students to go and do valuations of the businesses. And he made it part of the program. Not a good to have, but a must have. And that changed the cohort completely. And I think that's what we need to be congruent to. We need to be aware that we need to look at those who've passed, learn, and adjust accordingly for the next cohort. So which therefore means what we're saying is, if somebody who attended cohort 1 came and attended cohort 10, it should be a totally different experience. If it's exactly the same experience, then we are failing the industry. My take.
Opinions. Of course, opinions will now have to verify. We will have to verify. We might have to do a study now to say that now this is evidence. Because our evidence is by eyes.
We've done one cohort. Note, we did 2 years of opinion. So we said we need to put this to the test. And we put it to the test
with a cohort. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know why you're making it sound like we're
an academic institution.
And we're applying all the principles of an academic institution. Because we asked ourselves before was, fine, where do we get the cohort from? And the question was, let's do an open call. Then we said, no, that will be too cumbersome. Then we said, let's talk to a bank. Why? Let's go and tell them what we believe is an issue that needs addressing. And let them come back and tell us. The confirmation will be, if they respond positively, then our assumption, our hypothesis is validated. Mr. Academic, true or false?
Yes, I mean, it's fine.
So we went out, we talked to a bank, and we explained to them what we are planning to do. And what did the bank say?
I mean, they agreed to it.
So ABSA said, yes, because I think truly you're addressing an issue that we have. Yeah. Then that was issue 1 resolved. 2, do their clients feel that they need what we are offering? And ABSA went out, talked to their clients, and we got 9 of them who said, definitely. And I remember we had a conversation on, should we charge for the course or should we have ABSA pay for it?
Well, and of course, the reason why we wanted them to pay is there is the bias for humans to be afraid to lose, something called loss aversion. We get, or we say, feel more pain. Yes, we feel more pain when we lose something than we are more happy when we gain. So what that basically means is people will always want whatever they've used to count for something, right? And because of that fear, then they start engaging with what they are learning or what they are getting from a classroom setting. So that's why we always needed the students to pay. And of course, the counter is, but we have done all these programs that are free. We've gotten grants for training across the nation. Why should we pay? And that's what basically we are saying. It's the reason why there is no effect of all these grants is that there was no fear of losing anything. Which leads us to what we think about exits, yeah? Because we also had a section that talks about what should you do to your business when it reaches to a certain point in terms of growth or even maturity. And of course, this ties into what Raymond does with the family business. And some of our cohorts, 1 or 2, were family businesses. So it's still something that's relevant, and why we also thought we should partner with Raymond in this, because a good number of SMEs are family businesses. But for the exit, we are trying to show them that there are very many ways that you can grow your business. It doesn't have to be all the time manual, meaning you are the only one who needs to grow it. And one of them, we said, for example, is mergers and acquisitions. Can you be able to merge with your competitor? Are you able to acquire a competitor? Especially if you're a larger SME, you can get a small SME. And we've been having, like in Kenya now, we have so many small businesses that perhaps need to be merged to form a bigger business. But the key highlight that kept on coming was they were asking, what will the founder do next?
I'll take you back, and I think we tend to jump a step. For the mergers and acquisitions to happen, the business need to have a value.
Yeah.
And when we sent our students out to go and do valuations of companies, most of the founders were saying what? No, you're saying my business is worth what? 10 million? No.
Some agreed with the figure we gave.
But many said no. I'm being told that, no, the bank tells me my business is worth 50 million. But the difference here is we were valuing your business as a going concern and not as its asset base. The bank usually does a valuation of you based on the asset base, because if you default, they need something they can sell. And currently, it's very difficult in this part of the world to sell goodwill of a business. Say, think Nakumat. You'd have thought the brand name had value.
It did.
So why didn't somebody buy the brand name? Because there's nothing wrong. Nakumat never sold us anything poisonous. They didn't do anything negative. The business died. But if the name had value, shouldn't that have been sufficient to make a major return or somebody to be interested in buying it? In buying the name, not the activity. So most of our businesses have no intrinsic value. And that is why I can't acquire you if I don't know your value. And what we're trying to say as with part of the KOMA program also is, can you get to the point where you have a business you can sell? Or what we're calling it more is that you can exit from. And the exit has multiple facets. The assumption always with exit is that you're exiting to a third party. But we've seen situations where children are even offering to buy off the parent and say the only way we can take over this business if you're not part of it. Why? Because the children have most likely grown up seeing the attachment between the parent and the business. And they know at no time will this parent let go. Because the parent also feels they have invested a lot and they have locked in capital. So the first thing is, if we know the value of what's sitting in it, then your kids could wake up and tell you, Mom, Dad, we've leveraged the business. We're doing a leveraged buyout of you. We've gotten funding. We've proven to the bank that this business is worth 50 million. The bank has given us 20 million. Here is 20 million. Walk away.
And for the layman out there, leverage buyout is when you borrow money from the bank to go and acquire a company. But it's the company that pays back the bank. It's not the individual
who borrowed. Yes,
it's the individual who borrowed. So, and this is a big thing across the globe. We rarely do it here in Kenya. It's not as much or as big
because there's no value
as
to show.
As of course, there are very many issues with that. People have argued why should that be the case, and what happens in downturns of markets because people are losing more. There's a whole conversation around it.
But on the same, Edwin, it also explains why KOMA is at SIMS.
Yes.
Because it is SIMS business.
Yes.
To do structuring of such kind of things.
Yes. So we are in the finance space, essentially. And then, of course, we have the final one, which is the SME market of the NSC as one of the exits, which most people we also found have no idea what it is as a way of exit. An exit here, it's not even... When we talk about the SME market, we don't mean that you are going to give the whole public 100% of shares. It's one of the biggest myths. People believe that the SME market, people will come and take your company, which isn't. So under the GEMS, which is Growth Enterprise Market segment, that was what was there initially, and it changed to now the SME market after the new regulations of 2023 by CMA. And so they are working on trying to implement that, the new regulations. We don't know yet where they are at that, but that's where we're at. And so we were also highlighting that there's that as a possibility, only because people need to know these things. Because for example, if you've done your business for 30 years, you'll not do it for the next 30. So you have to figure out what will you do with what should you do with that business.
I think we need to separate our mortality from that of the business.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that's the norm.
That's the challenge.
Yes. Is that you believe that having a conversation about exit is a conversation about your mortality.
And so it's a conversation that we thought it's very, very important for the SMEs to know that happens, that they can start considering, especially if you are already a big SME, perhaps doing 100 million in revenue. That is already a business that can go, to the Nairobi Securities Exchange.
I think it's back to, it doesn't have to be 100 million. You could have a 20 million business with a clearly defined business model that is scalable.
Yes.
And the only thing you need is patient capital. You need 100 million in cash that you don't need to start repaying at the end of the following month. And that's what listing would help you with. It gives you patient capital. So you can then employ the capital and then grow the business. Because let's look at Java. 90% of your Javas look exactly the same.
Yeah.
The model was defined with the one. All that was needed after that was money. And that's why the two PE funds who came in, they came in because there was a defined business model that was scalable. It was structured, it was clear. Its costs were well known. Every single cost, be it salt, be it cleaning a toilet, be it, every single cost was known when they were in the first shop. Now, all that was happening now is replication.
Yeah.
And look, think of it. You've got petrol stations. Multiple of them across the country, looking exactly the same. You've got KFC. But then when you walk to most of our businesses, when I have 3 outlets, they are 3 totally different outlets. They don't share anything. They don't share personnel. They don't share finances. They don't share procurement. And that is what we're trying to say. Build one system that works and people that isn't dependent on people. Then scale becomes an afterthought.
The last part after the 8 weeks of doing class was the actual visits to the companies. So we really needed to see what is happening in those companies, what are they doing, who works in them, where are they located, to even meet some of the staff, because sometimes the names keep popping up during the class. So we needed to put some faces to it. So we usually go to the actual businesses to see what they do. What did we get from that? So we divided. Some faculty went to others went to others.
I think the whole idea of going also is it helps us to reconcile the person we had in class when we find them in their natural habitat. And then from there you can almost tell whether you expect them to apply what they learned. And
obviously one day we can't assess application.
Well, I think it's a side that you can't see when the person is.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're in your comfort zone. You are in your place.
Yes.
Of course, now people are standing a bit straighter when we come in.
Yes.
And we were given tea and scones or mandas when we went to those businesses, and we were introduced as these are our walimus.
And that is the key word.
What is the key word?
Walimu.
Why is it a key word?
I don't think we understand the power of being a teacher.
Walimu.
Yes. The president even went to see his former teacher.
We appreciate the tea.
Not bring the teacher to him. He went to see his teacher.
We appreciate the juice also.
And what you got.
And the scones.
And we learned this from again, before we ran KOMA, we used other programs for research and to get to see what happens. And we did about 15, 17 visits with one of the other, with Raymond and his program. And it brought out very interesting things. At least those ones were longer. Because I know we went thinking we'll be at a business for an hour. And in one business, we were there, I think, for 6 hours.
We stayed longer. Because family business was different. The family members, we needed to know who is in the business, who isn't.
But it also taught us a lot. Because what we then realized is that somebody registered for the program saying, I run a small farm. When we show up, and the conversation goes on, this is 2 hours, 3 hours later, somebody is dropping snippets. Oh, there's this farm we have across there. How big is it? Oh, it's 150 acres. Okay. What else? Oh, no, we actually even have a hotel. Yeah, it's currently not operating, but we are planning to bring it back up. What else? We're running this. And then you realize that many of us have many business activities. And this usually might not come out in class, again, but it will come out easier when they're their natural habitat. In certain others we went to, things almost got contentious. Because especially with the family business, when now the rest of the family comes in, and they're trying to understand who are these foreigners who have been brought amongst us. And now certain things start coming up. And it's scary when it's verbalized in your presence. Most of the time you expect that they'll wait for you to leave. Like we say, mgeni akienda, we'll deal with the issue of that child who went and ate the biscuits from the visitor's saucer. You don't beat the child at the point, you deal with them later. But when it comes out while you're still there, then you understand that there are certain pressures that can only be brought out when somebody is in their comfort zone. I think that was what the program did.
And also for the visits, we tend to also hear more about the challenges and the opportunities within each business.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's industry specific. So perhaps you're in maybe agribusiness, food manufacturing, which is different from someone who has perhaps
a school, a hospital.
Yeah. And usually that is important to hear. Because as we said, originally also part of KOMA was to work with the founders, to help them fill the gaps that they may have. And the only way to know those gaps from each business was to visit. Because sometimes they cannot even remember some of the challenges they're facing until you talk to one or two of the employees who say, no, by the way, in terms of marketing, this is what we're having. For example, of of our 10 customers, only 2 are repeat. And we need that 2 to move to 6 or 7. And we've never found a way of doing that. So those are the challenge, and that is a challenge perhaps maybe the marketing person would raise at the spur of the moment, which was not really planned for or was not going to be discussed within the modules.
Yes, more because yes, in class they are different people.
Yeah,
and they have their own reservations on what they could share. But when you go into their business now, this is a one-on-one. It's the same way, like when you go to your doctor, you don't discuss at the triage, at the reception, what your issues are.
No, you actually say, how else will they?
No. There they just take your blood pressure, your weight, and the rest, and then you're handed over to the doctor. When the doctor closes the door, now you can pour out your heart.
So we are therapists.
We are therapists. And I think Irongo, one of our cohort members, who
was part of episode
3, who we interviewed, he actually told us that most people are in business for the thrill, for the adrenaline. And at times when you then go to their place of work, you can see why. They are feeding off.
Is it power?
Yes.
Because they have all those people around them.
All those people around them. And we are seeing it when organizations in the West have told people, back to the office, no more virtual.
But the power doesn't subside even if you leave it and go to church.
But I know no other way. I know no other way to absorb that energy. And that's why we say the issue with that business is not finance, is not money, is not that. It's that the founder does not know what they're sitting on. And that is what KOMA was intended to do. It's a mindset issue. That's what we are suffering from. We are not seeing large enterprises in this country because founders don't have the right mindset for growth. We should be seeing, like you keep saying, Edwin, we should be seeing mergers, acquisitions, and the rest. I say, we keep complaining about the price of coffee. I did the math. A cup of coffee at Java is more expensive than a cup of coffee at Starbucks. So you'd expect if Java is up for sale, the coffee farmers would have come together ages ago and bought it. Why? Because it gives them a better return on their coffee price.
So do you want Java to reduce the price?
No, I don't. The key question is this. People keep trying to say our coffee farmers are being underpaid based on the price of coffee, of a cup of coffee at Starbucks. Yet no one wants to tell you that the cup of coffee at Java is higher than Starbucks.
Okay, we will need to verify that.
You can go and do it. Go check.
$2.82. Is it $2?
No, it's $1 something at Starbucks. It's $2 at...
but I know it varies based on the country.
And note, and what you have at Starbucks is not 100% Kenyan coffee.
Yeah, it's blended.
It's blended, and Kenyan coffee is only 20% of the cup. At Java, you're drinking 100%.
Yeah, ours is not blended?
No, it's not blended. It's 100% Kenyan coffee. And that is why you're charged more for coffee in Kenya than you're charged for coffee at Starbucks. It's a mindset issue, Edwin. It's just like, to me, I'll tell you, we keep thinking it's about technology and the rest. No, it's about mindset. If you wake up in the morning and decide, I will grow my business tenfold in the next 30 months, you will do it.
Okay. And of course, the visit also allows us to think through what next for the founder, because the issue is, if I'm even going to leave this, what next will I do? And I guess what we also help here at SCVI is figuring that out. What next? It's a conversation that we'll have in future episodes on what next, because it's one of the challenges that people face. They've been doing that for 20 years. It becomes so intertwined with the individual that it can even be looked at as a personality. And if they don't see what else they can do beyond whatever it is they're doing, then it becomes a challenge for them to leave the business.
And it means failure on our part. we also need to have something to lose. If we have nothing to lose, then we'll continue to do what everybody has done for 30 years.
On our part, you mean the country?
No, on our part. As Edwin, Raymond, and Robert. Let us not abdicate.
Yeah.
Yes, we've started a journey. And at graduation, I know one or two of the graduates said, don't leave us now.
Okay.
Because there has been an impact, but we have to keep the fire burning. And which is why we then built the consulting component.
Yeah. And even if you're not part of the KOMA program, we urge you to enroll. But if you need any of these services of what we've talked about from previous episodes, for example, gas, growth alignment simulation, where you want something to just come in and key in your processes, see how they are as is, and then give recommendations of what needs to change, can help you with that. Consulting as well, once we identify what issues are, and we talk about the two key issues, the ones that will bring that quantum leap in change. We can also help with that, so that we try and help the SME guys within this country and East African region as a whole.
I think on the same bits, what we're saying is, we tell you to go and put in financial systems.
It might be difficult.
And then we throw you out there. You walk to one of, sad to say, those people, one of the larger firms, consulting firms, and suddenly you're being given a bill of a couple of million to do that. So then, in other words, then we have failed you. So what we've said is, can we then build an intervention that allows you to start the journey towards putting in those systems in a cost-effective manner? We are doing it in multiple ways. Edwin has incorporated into some of his courses he teaches, whereby we then send students to go into real businesses and do valuations, as opposed to doing desktop valuations of companies in foreign countries, which they have no insight into. With that valuation, then it gives the founder then actually gets a report on that. And I think these are some of the things that we need to work more on.
Yeah.
In providing more than just the classwork, but following the entrepreneur back to their business and giving them what they require. Because like Edwin has mentioned GAS, the growth alignment simulation. And what that does is we basically give you a chief operating officer for 3 months. Even you can just come in. Even if you're not part of the program, you can reach out to SCVI and we can get you somebody who can come and act, get you, it's training wheels, Yeah. Try and see how you can survive with somebody else in your office. One, helping you to make decisions, but also giving instructions to your team. And then you can separate yourself from the day to day and see what it feels like. You need to get an experience of it. So that's what part of the visit and why we want to continue working with our various cohorts is that it's a longer journey. It's going to end up being almost a lifetime journey together. As your businesses grow, as they transition, as you leave, as you sell, as you bring in your children into the business. And that is the only way we shall have served our mission on this earth.
Thank you for joining us today, the SME Unleashed show. This is Edwin Obonyo from Strathmore Centre of Value Investing.
And Robert Yawe from Strathmore University.
In case you want to reach out to us, our email is scvi@strathmore.edu. I repeat, scvi@strathmore.edu. Looking forward to the next episode. See you soon.
Good day.